right. What's up, everybody? Hi, this is Pastor Rob here from Gateway Church Grand Prairie campus. I have some friends here with you, and what we're talking about tonight is parenting help. So I created this whole thing, started it because I realized that I'm not as good as I thought I would be at parenting. Like, I think everybody has this mindset of like marriage, like we're going to be awesome. And you're, as newlyweds, you're giving other couples advice. And as couples that have no kids, you're trying to give other families advice about how to raise their kids. And then you realize you have your own. You're like, I'm not as smart as I thought I was. And so what I realized is I need to ask for some help. I need to get in community. I need to humble myself and just like, I'm not good at this. Can somebody help me? So I created this, and I bring a different couple every weekend for you guys to kind of piggyback off my humility and to help me, please. And so tonight I have Ben and Jill Northrop. Guys, thank you so much for being here. So introduce the names and ages of your kids for me, please.
Our oldest child, his name is Noah, and he is 22. And our youngest child, her name is Ella, and she will be 18 in 3 weeks.
Wow. So you're about to have 2 adults, right? Or they should be already adults, right?
In theory.
In theory. And they're about to go out the door. So that's exciting. So if you guys don't know, I know this, we've known this couple for a long time. And so they put up with me before I was married, after I was married, before kids, after kids. And so they've been such a tremendous help to me and Tara. And I love them tremendously. And so it's an honor to have them here tonight. And I know that you guys will enjoy them as well. So you're not going to, now this is the second week in a row with the husband from a different country. Last week we had Paul from Ireland. Now we have Ben. He's from Australia. So and then we have an American. Both were attracted to Americans, and they both brought them over here to America. So guys, we're just going to go right into it. What the question is that I've been asking every night to every couple is basically this: what is one way that you feel like that you have won in parenting or are winning? So we all struggle. We all have things that we're failing in certain areas, but what do you feel like, according to the people around you or whatever, that you feel like you have won in parenting?
Do you want to answer that?
Go ahead, give it a try.
I would say one huge thing is both of our kids really love Jesus and are very committed to their relationship with the Lord and to following after the things that He has called them to do and the path that He has set in front of them.
Yeah.
What do you think? How, as parents, I want to make sure, our greatest desire is that our kids would know the Lord and would follow Him. I think kids that are raised in the church tend to be rebellious and kind of see a hypocrisy or be tainted by this world. There's a great falling away of a lot of youth today. So what is something that you feel like you guys have done that helped guide them to make that decision? Because we can't force it, unfortunately, but like, what do you feel like attributed to their relationship with Jesus?
I think one big thing is we really involved them in the process. Yeah. We talked to them about what was going on at church. We got them involved in youth group. We talked to them about our own experience and our own struggles and our own questions, and would ask their input of what group we should go to, or what family, cell group we should go to, or when it came time for us to leave the church that we were at, and God was telling us to do that, we involved them in that process. It was not, we just made decisions and said, okay, now you have to just follow whatever we've said. So they were very much part of what we were doing. And so they weren't an add-on.
Yeah, I think even when we did a few trips that were far beyond probably what we could do, and we were just honest with them. and we're like, this is the reality of where we're at. Everything that happens from here on out is God. And we want it to be your testimony as much as ours. So yeah, we were honest with them, I think, with some big transitions or some big changes or some big ideas. And
What
just being,
specifically was that? Like, how did you engage in that conversation? Did you and Jill talk first and say, we really need to bring them in on this? And then how did that process go? Like, what was their response?
Some of it is not, we didn't want to burden them with the anxiety and the decision making process, and we wanted to shield them and to cover them as much as possible, just through all of the ups and downs of life and relationships, and things you like, things you don't like. We didn't want to air all even other people's dirty laundry, things that we knew, and so it was discussing and coming to a place of being able to sit in front of them and say, okay, here's what we feel like God is telling us. And here's where we find ourselves. And what do you think about this? And what do you feel about this? It wasn't so much us giving all the information. It was, what do you feel about where we're at?
yeah.
What was one of the biggest things biggest first things that you guys brought them into that was that maybe they were unaware of like, because I feel like what you're talking about right now is probably more recent. It wasn't when they were 5 or 6.
Right.
Right.
Can you give a little bit more specifics of like that?
Yeah. A few years ago, we took a trip to go see my family, and it was way beyond. We felt like God said it's time to go, and we were to go see my family, and it was way beyond what we could cover. And we just sat down with them, and we agreed. We talked initially and said we want this to be their testimony as much as ours. And we said we don't have what it takes to do all of this. What we need to do. So we want you to know up front, we don't have what it takes to complete this in a great way. Mm-hmm. So everything that happens from today is going to be a God thing. It's going to be God filling it in, and we want you to know that is not because your dad has a American Express black card. That we want you to know that God is going to do something, and He really did. We did some extensive traveling that was far beyond what we could handle and what we could manage or what we could cover, and they got to see that. They got to experience it, and it was really cool. So yeah, that was a big one. I just wanted to be honest and not go, oh, we're just gonna try and cover it and pretend like everything's great, and not let them. We don't want them to carry the burden. That's not their job, but we wanted them to see the testimony. We wanted it to be their testimony. So that was probably the most recent, which was, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. So
do you feel like at any point after that experience, and so you said this about 5 years ago, did you see the fruit of that experience building faith in them and believing God for big things? Was there any fruit in your kids that you saw later? Wow, they really got that was part of their testimony that they took into the next battle.
I think it's a combination of quite a few things. I think we very much encouraged them and signed them up for youth camps and conferences, prophetic conferences, places that they would actually get to encounter and experience God moving for themselves. Because I believe once you've had an encounter with the Lord, it's really hard to forget. And so I wanted them to have their own encounter, their own experience, their own tangible thing that they could always go back to. Oh, remember when, even if it, because a lot of people go, oh, well, if that happened 15 years ago or 20 years ago. But if it happens every summer when you go to, YFN, or you go to a conference, a youth conference, or some, those are really hard things to forget, and those aren't about us. We're not the in between them and the Lord. They are experiencing the Lord on their own. And so we've always made sure that they had those times. So then when they watch us walk out our faith and walk out the things that God's done in our own life, then they get to couple it with their own encounter and go, oh, okay, God actually, this is big. He shows up in big ways.
Yeah, some of that stuff we probably still yet to see in what they see. I feel like for me, growing up, we didn't have quite probably the testimony where we knew that there was a challenge. So for us, I think we wanted for our kids to know where God's filling it in. That's the right way to say that. That we don't have it all figured out and we don't have it all planned, but we want them to know that God's got it.
Do you feel like your kids at all at any point was like digging their heels? Because I feel that a lot of parents send their kids to Bible school or to church, they just drop them off and say, I hope they had that experience. I want them to have that experience, so I'm going to put them in that situation. Do you feel like, was there any times where they were resistant to going to these things? And then, I mean, how, because I think a lot of parents it would be easy just to drop them off at a camp and have them have that wonderful experience. But what was the situation for them?
I think they didn't know any different. I think honestly, it's so part of who we are and how we live our day-to-day lives, and our relationship with the Lord is just part of who we are and what we do every day. So, and they had friends, we surrounded ourselves with like-minded people and like-minded families with kids that were similar ages. And so there was just a big group, a big support. And so they wanted to be, because those were their friends. And we did, I remember a period of time looking around going, they don't have any other friends. They had a few school friends, but they were really more just acquaintances. But our whole life was the relationships at church and their friends at church. And so for them, they wanted to go to camp and they wanted to go to conferences because that's where all their friends were. So we didn't ever really have a lot of pushback.
Yeah, I think we've always wanted them to understand the challenges, but not carry the burden. I think carrying the burden as a kid is not a healthy thing. That's our job. But we want them to know what happens next, or what happens these next handful of things is going to be a God thing. So be excited, get to know, have a test. We want you to have a testimony. I think for me growing up, I probably didn't start having my testimonies. My dad had a fairly secure job. Everything was taken care of. Things were predictable. So I probably didn't start my testimonies till I was probably like 18 and going, I don't have what it takes. I'm relying on God. For me, I wanted the kids to be able to have significant markers as early as possible to go, God did this. This was not my parents. This was God. So that eventually, we love to say our ceiling can be their floor, so they can have something to build on. So anyway, yeah,
that's a real good. What would you say would be something that you think they would say if you would ask them right now, Mom, what do you think we did well as parents? What do you think their response would be? Would there be a response? It's kind of a tricky.
No.
Tricky question.
Why would they say that we did great?
What would you hope? Let's put it this way: if you could answer it for them, like with your effort, like that you've put forth in raising them, what would you hope that they would say that they learned from you? This is real time questions, people. I did not prepare them for these questions. This is just, I'm just throwing them out there.
Yeah, I think we have always had a very strong in our own lives, and then communicated to them, God is always going to show up. He is always going to show up. And it may not be in the time that we think, it may not be in the way that we think, but his timing is perfect. His ways are perfect. They are not our ways. And we have watched it over and over and over in our lives. Sometimes we used to say he shows up at 11:59, and really he shows up at like 12:01 is really how that works.
12:30 on our scale.
But he always shows up, and he does more than what you can ever imagine. And if you try to figure out how and when he's going to show up, you'll never figure it out. And so there's an intense trust, and that trust has to be learned. I mean, it's a muscle. It's a muscle to be in situations in life of going, I'm on my own and I'm left out, I'm hanging out here. And, but I think that if you give him time and space, if you give the Lord time and space to show up, before you intervene and try to control the situation yourself, he does. And the more that we have, worked that muscle, I think that is the thing that our kids have watched, and they know that we, as sometimes it's difficult, but we have a very intense faith in the Lord that he is going to show up for us.
Yeah. I think we not always intentionally live in a place where that little space between where the rubber meets the road, where there's challenges. I think we do our kids the best benefit when we do pass on. It's great to give them our testimonies, but it's better for them to live theirs. So to start them off with an understanding of what God can do, without them carrying the burden of freaking out, is a big deal. To think generationally, like, I don't want them, maybe like I did, where the first time I stepped out was the first time I trusted God and was like, well, I don't know, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to bust. I never saw that with my parents because it was relatively predictable. Things were covered. But I want them to have I've wanted them to have a foundation of, we've seen what God can do. So we're going to step out. We're going to step out in greater things. That's at least my desire.
Well, and I think, that a few years ago, Noah was wanting to go on a mission trip, and he had raised half of his money, but the deadline was coming. He needed $250 more. And he called me. He was in California and said, I have to have $250 today. And I remember so vividly standing in the kitchen, and I almost said, okay, I'll send it. And I so clearly heard the Lord say, this is between me and Noah. This is not about you.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he said, this is his testimony. It is not yours. And I felt so calm, and I just said, well, I'm just going to be praying that the rest of the money comes in. And he was so mad.
Mom!
He was so mad. He was like, what? But it's due today. And I said, okay, well, I'm just going to be praying. And it was really hard because it was $250. It wasn't, $2,500 or $25,000. And within 24 hours, he called me and he said, all the money came in. and then and it was one of those things for me where the Lord was saying, this is between me and Noah. And I know that you can fix this, but this is between him and me.
Yeah.
And it's having those moments of wanting your kids to have their own testimony enough that, and I'm not saying, yes, there have been other times when we go, here's $250 for whatever the next thing is. But there's moments where the Lord says, I want to teach them about my faithfulness for them. And I don't know, and it's a different age for every kid, because every kid has a different personality and their own story is different. But I think if we listen closely to the Lord, he wants to prove himself to our kids.
Yeah.
He wants to be their God.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's really good. Man, I'm about to cut it. I'm about to cut this short. But I was thinking about this. I know that you guys have been in the past involved in some very intense freedom ministry, and stop me if I'm wrong, but a lot of freedom needs to be done when you're going back to someone's childhood, right? So my next question is kind of strange in the fact of, if you could give parents advice so they don't need counseling later in life, it's like, just don't do this crazy thing. It's going to screw them up. What do you think is the most consistent thread? Because both of you individually have met, you do freedom sessions with people, you go back, the Lord leads it, the Lord does the work and everything, but kind of what is kind of a consistent thing that if parents could, I love everything that you're saying, but I was just like, man, there's this one nugget probably. I really want to dig all this stuff out of you, but we don't have a lot of time. Do you know where I'm going with this? Like with freedom, what would you say? What would you advise? This is your advice portion of this show, but like, what would you advise parents to make sure that, to reduce the amount of freedom sessions they'll need later? What could we do? What would you suggest to parents?
Deal with the trash in your own life. Because you can parent, if you are parenting from a free place and a whole place, it doesn't mean we don't make mistakes. Everybody's gonna make mistakes. And every child, the way they perceive things is going to be different. But if you can parent from a free and whole place, and you have dealt with the traumas and the sin and the generational junk in your own life, then your parenting is coming from a place of wholeness. Yeah. And you're not parenting as your parents parented or your grandparents parented. You're parenting from a healed soul that sees things the way that God wants them to be. So that's
our screwed up seems normal though. It's like, I didn't know this was...
because we go, oh, my mom did it like this and my grandmother did it like this, and this is just my personality and this is how we do it. But a lot of that stuff is generational stuff that has been passed down, and it can be a little bit twisted. There's blessings, there's a lot of blessings, but there's also a lot of just sin and curses that we just go, oh, it's genetic. But that, I think there's a lot of things that could be prevented and really just bring a lot of joy and freedom as a family when you can just parent out of a whole place in yourself.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I couldn't probably add much to that other than the freer you get, the freer your kids are gonna be. Obviously, your words matter. Everything you say matters, which is super unfortunate, because we want to be just kind of loose, and that we want to use that. What's the phrase about? Well, kids are resilient and kids are tough, and they bounce back. But as many people as we meet with, kids are not really resilient. They take it all in. So everything that's said and everything that's set up matters. So yeah, I would echo what Jill said. Just with the freer you get, the better you minister to your kids, the better you raise them, the more truth is spoken. Yeah, and the more blessed they are. So yeah, that's a big key. That's a big key.
That's awesome. Guys, thank you so much for letting me grill you and not preparing you at all of what I was going to ask you. But I think you bring up a lot of amazing points. And I think what's really cool is that you have allowed, like I said before, is that your God to be their God and then them to have that experience. And I love what you're saying is being aware of when to kind of portion out the pressure. Some things are our responsibility, but then to invite them at the right time to let them know and say, this is where we're trusting God. And so I appreciate that. And to deal with ourselves and be free and not just try to fix them. But God wants the parents, listen, God wants you to be free, and it's never too late. It's not too late to make an impact in your life. God, you're not too far gone. You're not too messed up. God can work in your life. If you're needing help and you're watching this and there's issues that you feel like you're not able to conquer, I want you to reach out to me and let me know. We want to be here to help you. And the freer you get, like they said, is the freer your kids will be as well. So guys, again, thank you for being here. All parents, thank you for watching. Stay the course. Don't give up. Okay. You're doing a great job. We love you all. We'll see you next time.